Never ever do this. The 5 things you should never do for a man. Now, I just want to say over the years, I've observed that women tend to relinquish their power to a man in relationship. And I want to be candid with you. I saw this title on a contemporary site, and I thought I'd give you my take on what women should never do. Now, I know we don't like the word should, but hear me out for a second. Let me know what you think. So, why do women give their power away to men? I think that's a really good question. And I have a theory that I want to dive into before I share you these 5 things. I think throughout history, women have been dependent upon men for survival purposes. And in many cases, throughout history, men have been doing the asking of marriage in relationship. And when you think about marriage, when you think about the vows, beyond those sickness and health, rich or poor, that sort of thing, there is an essence of I will take care of you, meaning the man's responsibility to take care of a woman. That certainly has shifted in the last 50 years. And thankfully, women aren't necessarily dependent upon men. In fact, and I want to say that thankfully, I'm grateful that many of you are not in that position. Sadly, many of you still are. And when you're in a position of dependency, it can be rather challenging to be in a relationship. But when you are a sovereign being, and I believe Jane Fonda recently talked about that in a video, not recently, it could have been an older video. I even think Carol Burnett made the same comment as well. When you're a sovereign being and you're not dependent upon someone else, that allows you to make life choices. And yet, sadly, women have been conditioned, particularly in the narrative that men choose when to have commitments. Like I said earlier, they're always waiting for the man asking. By the way, is there a question for you all? Is there anything wrong with a woman asking for the hand in marriage? To make it a little bit traditional. I think if anything else, by having the conversation, you can really get a barometer of where someone might land with that conversation. So I think women might want to shift that narrative. Again, I'm just making it as a theory, not as an absolute practice. But when throughout history, women have been conditioned that men are the leaders of the relationship, I think it causes the following things I'm about to share. And by the way, before we go any further, ladies, let me just say this. Men are not leaders of the relationship. You are in charge of your relationship destiny. And particularly for you ladies that are in midlife, and I always say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement, we have a significant population of both men and women that are rather clueless at the mechanics to a healthy, happy relationship. This is anecdotal, but roughly 75% of singles over 45, over 50 years old are divorced, the ones that are in the dating marketplace. Sure, there are the never marrieds and the widowers in there, but roughly those people that are single are most likely divorced, meaning that they weren't necessarily good at being relationship prior. And just because, and here's the fallacy, here's the fantasy most everybody has arrived at. It's the problem was the other person. You see, sadly, very few people actually look in the mirror to say, how could I have contributed to the decline of my relationship? We're in a population of people that say, it's her fault, it's his fault, it's his fault, it's her fault, always pointing the finger. And when you point a finger, there are 3 little fingers pointing back to you. So, coming back to my theory, I think women have been conditioned to expect that. And ladies, I'm here to encourage you. And if you're men watching this, ladies, you should be in charge of your relationship destiny. Don't give that up to a man. So where do I observe women make this mistake with men that I think they should never do? Let's dive into these 5 things. The first one, can someone write this down? You shrink yourself to keep his ego safe. You shrink yourself to keep his ego safe. Like pretending you don't make that much money, like brushing off a promotion. Avoid speaking up on something because you're afraid he'll see that you're too much. If your shine makes him dim, he's not your guy. Let me repeat that. Like pretending you don't make as much money as you do. Listen, ladies, if a man is intimidated by your success, and by the way, he's not intimidated by your success all the time. Oftentimes, he's concerned you won't accept him for who he is. I just want you to know that. A lot of you strong, smart, successful women think that men are intimidated, but in many cases, now the issue could be you're controlling. You hyper focus on your work. You don't focus much on the relationship. That's not attractive behavior to men. But certainly there are plenty of men that their ego is wrapped up in their masculinity, and they're not necessarily partnership material in relationship, because if you have to dim yourself, he's not your guy. Have you ever experienced that? Please write a comment, let me know, post it in the chat box. You have felt that the man you're with can't accept your shine. By the way, folks, a relationship should be one where your guy gets excited about what you do. I was watching an Instagram reel the other day, and it was a younger man. He was watching his girlfriend in a track and field race, and he was cheering and jumping up and down to demonstrate how much care he has for his partner. And she won the gold, I believe, because her success is his success too. His success is your success. In a healthy relationship, you should both want to be teammates with one another. You should both want to make each other shine. You should never shrink yourself to keep his ego safe. And if you've ever done that, post a comment and say, sadly, I did this, but I won't do this anymore. Can you write that down? I won't do this anymore. Okay. Number 2, pretend his bad behavior doesn't bother you. Laughing off a joke that eventually stings, ignoring how he leaves you waiting, or letting it slide when he interrupts you in conversation. Every time you swallow your truth, you chip away at your own dignity. I'm going to repeat that. Every time you swallow your truth, you chip away at your own dignity. Now, sometimes we might have to decide what battles to choose, but certainly when it comes to bad behavior, I don't think you should dim your light in this particular case or pretend his bad behavior doesn't affect you. I am going to share something publicly that I'm slightly embarrassed about, my bad behavior, and how my sweetheart called me out on it. Recently, or let me just share one time, we were traveling back from an event, and we were stuck in major traffic. And I was really annoyed because I could have taken the toll road and beat like 30 minutes worth of traffic. And I mean, like, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was at midnight. I mean, what the heck is traffic at midnight? And what was aggravating me, I was in the far left lane, and then there was this lane, people were kind of scooting up along the side of it. And I just started a jockey in position. I was getting a little bit of road rage. I'm going to own it. Look, I'm not a perfect being. A lot of men aren't perfect being, but I got into a little bit of road rage. And guess what? She called me out on it. Now, I could have gotten defensive. I could have made up excuses, but I realized I was being a dick. And in a way, I was grateful that she called out my bad behavior. But I want you to think about, have you ever had duct tape over your mouth when he was doing something inconsiderate? Like maybe it was road rage, and please don't beat me up for that one. I do occasionally get anxious at times. Not always, but sometimes it does happen. But I'm grateful she called me out. But have you ever found yourself where you kept silent when it came to your truth, particularly bad behavior, or maybe he interrupts you? Now, I'm guilty for interrupting, but you know what? I'm going to say my girlfriend is guilty of it as well. Sometimes we humans have a habit of we want to say something and we don't want to forget it, so we interrupt. But I'm saying in a curt way, in an inconsiderate way, in a demeaning way. See, if you ever have to dim your life, if you have to pretend his bad behavior doesn't bother you, you have to ask yourself, is this person my teammate? Is this person my friend? Is this a person that I can actually hold hands with through the thick and thin part of relationship? And if you have to pretend that bad behavior or something that stings doesn't affect you, then you're not being honest, not only with yourself, but you're not being honest with him. Ladies, I just want to say something. A relationship is like sailing a boat, okay? Now I live in Los Angeles. So imagine I just got into the Pacific Ocean and I said, I'm in a partnership-based relationship and we're sailing to Hawaii. See, every time something chips away, you're losing your direction. You're going 1 degree in the wrong direction. And do you realize a 1 degree shift from going to Hawaii from Los Angeles could end me up or us up in Australia? Or worse, it could end up in like maybe the Antarctic for all I know. My point is a relationship is constantly steering the rudder to keep it on track to where you're going. And if you're silencing your voice little by little, if you're sweeping it under the rug, you're diminishing the value of the relationship by being silent. And sadly, many of you ladies do this. So please don't pretend his bad behavior doesn't bother you. Number 3. You have to compete for his attention. You have to compete for his attention. By the way, it's 11:11 on the video right now for as long as it's been running. You have to compete for his attention. Maybe you're stalking his social media page to see who he's liking, trying to outperform another woman in his life, or tolerating crumbs of effort just to keep him engaged. If you're vying for the spotlight in his world, you've already lost your own stage. Let me repeat that. If you're vying for the spotlight in his world, you've already lost your own stage. Ladies, you should never have to compete for his attention. You should never have to send a text message flare to say, I'm thinking of you. Now, it's not to say in a healthy conversational relationship, you might say things like, I'm thinking of you. You might want to create engagement and flirtation. But if you haven't heard from him in days, you shouldn't have to throw up a flare to say, I exist, particularly if you're having a physically intimate relationship with someone. Ladies, let me be clear about something. If the penis is going inside the vagina on a regular basis, you have every right to speak up, and you should never have to compete for his attention. And please don't stalk his Facebook page to see who he's liking, to see who's liking him. That can create so much anxiety. If you ever find yourself doing that, you've got to ask yourself, do I feel safe in this relationship to begin with? Because if you're not feeling safe, and maybe you have trust issues, maybe you have some stuff going on from your past that caused you to operate this way, that's the time to look in the mirror and say, I've got to work on my own stuff. But if you're triggered by his actions on social media, I'll be candid with you. I was in a relationship with a woman who had trust issues, and I'm like, I'm the worst person to date because I'm on social media regularly communicating with women oftentimes. But certainly you shouldn't have to be in that position. A healthy relationship is a relationship where two people are engaging with each other on a regular basis to connect on a regular basis, and you should never have to compete for his attention. Number 4, you ignore your intuition. You ignore your intuition. Someone write that down. That uneasy feeling when he avoids talking about his ex, when he dodges commitment questions, or when you sense he's not investing as much as you are. Your gut is your compass. The more you override your gut, the more lost you become. Let me repeat that. The more you override your gut, the more lost you become. And the area where I see women do this habitually happens to be in the area of, where is this relationship going? The commitment conversation. Folks, I'm going to say something. If you're in your 50s and 60s, like much of my audience, and you both agreed you want to explore a serious relationship, and that conversation should happen within the first 90 days. If in the first 90 days, particularly within 90 days and when you're physically intimate, okay, you should both, first off, you should start with, what is your relationship future? Like, how do you see your relationship future? Is marriage something that you want? Is living together something you want? Is life partnership something you want? Because here's the thing. If you don't have that destination in mind, remember that story I told you about getting on the boat? If you have no place to go, you're just like, oh, I just want to be in the Pacific Ocean and I just want to go here and I want to go there with no destination. It's kind of challenging to build a life with someone, but more importantly, we become emotionally invested in someone. I think it's important to lay out those desires. Now, ladies, you have a propensity to say, I want a relationship. And he goes, I want a relationship too. So both you go, oh, we're on the same page. We want a relationship. Well, in his mind, a relationship might be seeing each other every other week for sex. That might be his definition of relationship. Your definition of relationship might sound like my definition of relationship, where you're spending 2, 3, 4 days, nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in your personal and your professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to either moving in together or getting married, even at least a spiritual marriage. Folks, your intuition tells you very quickly if this guy is legitimate or not, except you override your intuition. You ignore your intuition habitually, ladies. You figure the more I invest, the more he'll love me. God, let me just say this about men. Men know within 90 days of physical intimacy whether or not they see you as life partnership material. Particularly those men that want life partnership. The guys who don't know what they want, they can waste time in your life for years. Are you familiar with my chart called the 3 types of people actively dating? By the way, this is not a fact. It's merely an opinion. There are the users, the love bombers, the players, the gold diggers, the entitled people. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. There's 20, and that's 20%. 20% are grower builders. They seek life partnership-based relationships. They have their act together. They operate like teammates. 60% of the population are spenders. And the reason why they're called spenders, because they'll spend time with you. You'll be a placeholder in their life. But they seek connection, companionship, and sex. But they have no direction. They're uncertain. They're fearful. Usually have a dysfunctional life. So be mindful. Ask those tough questions about commitment to keep your relationship on track. And let me just share with you what I do in my relationship. We revisit the following. How did we get here? Where are we? And where do we want to go? And how do we want to be where we go? How did we get here as a reflection of all the experiences that got us to where we're at? Where are we is looking at our life like, what do we want to do in this, in the moment, if you will? A lot of guys say, let's just live in the moment. Yeah, that's important, but where do we want to go? Folks, ask these questions. You got to steer the boat if you want to get to Hawaii. Because having duct tape over your mouth, by the way, I know I look like I'm agitated, but it's because I don't want you to get hurt. I'm your big brother. If I could have a shotgun pointed at a guy's face and say, what are your intentions with my little sister? I'd be saying that for you on your behalf. And number 5, settle for potential. Telling yourself he'll change once he gets that better job. He'll commit when he's ready. He'll just needs healing, and then he'll be the man I want him to be. Potential is hope, not promise. And you deserve love, not the theoretical type, the real type. You ladies, you have this, what is that? That third eye. You see the potential. You see the vision. You focus on that instead of his actions in the moment. His actions, do they match his words consistently? Is he generous and kind? Do they communicate clearly without wanting to be right? They don't use people. These are men of character. They don't use people. They're clear about commitment. They have their act together. And they're emotionally and physically healthy and have self-control, and they don't chase sex, drugs, and alcohol. And if you're looking at the potential and yet he's not a man of character, then ask yourself, is this a man you'd be proud to be with from a long-term vantage point. These are 5 things you should never do for a man. Never, ever, ever do this. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. Follow me on social media. Get my dating vows. You're going to need this. It's in the description below. Please register for my dating vows. It'll make a difference in your life. All right. And don't forget to check out the description below for everything.